Hi guys, Tucker here with a new video, and this video will be my 2v2 tier list video, PvP of course, for 10.2 of Dragonflight. And we are at the start of the season, many things can change. I do feel like 2v2 is a bit less inclined of changing, that's why I'm going to make a tier list for 2v2, and next week I will be doing a solo shuffle one, which I think, and I will expect a lot of changes tonight or next week for the classes. But let's talk about 2v2. I think it's an important bracket. I think it's a entry bracket for a lot of beginner PvP. If you're like learning a class or a spec, I think 2v2 is one of the better environments to do so. I do feel like it's a lot of unfair PvP. Not every single spec is good in PvP in 2v2 for good or bad reasons. But I do feel like the meta has changed since quite a bit. I think right now the usual god tier specs are not really as god tier anymore, but I'm going to talk about it right now. Okay, let's talk right away about Affliction Warlock. I think Affliction Warlock in 2v2 has a bit more liberties of actually casting things, and it does work very well with resto druid. And since resto druid is very strong, it helps them immensely, especially resto druid with Affliction Warlock has way more time to do damage. And I don't know if I should rate the specs purely and solely because of their specs or because of the combinations that we have currently available for these specs. But if I'm going to rate specs, I'm going to say Affliction Warlock by themselves is a B tier spec with current landscape. Now they are a lot better versus hunters than what it was before because they don't have a dispel anymore. You can actually win versus those way more effectively, I would say. But the meta is really zuggy in 2v2. I do feel like currently the better specs right now are kind of rolling over people. And I think like Affliction Warlock is one of the specs that are actually getting wrecked by them. I could put it in A tier, maybe a bit further down the line, but right now B tier, I think middle of the road, which is I'm going to write good because people are like always mistaking B as a bad tier. I think B is not that bad. It's actually a good to average tier. But I would say for this tier list, since we have stupid strong, which is god tier, but I'm going to say stupid strong. B tier is actually a good tier. I think C tier is underpowered though, and D tier is garbage. And A tier is meta, S tier is S tier, very strong. OP, I would say. And stupid strong means that it needs to be nerfed in 2v2 or in 3v3, to be honest. But let's talk about arcane mages. I think arcane mages in 2s is not as strong as in 3s or in solo shuffle. I don't think it's bad necessarily, but I do feel like it's underwhelming. So I'm going to put in C tier. It has only one school of spell that is really worth kicking. The rest is not as worth it. You can win and perform as an arcane mage in 2s, but I do feel like you're missing something to make win conditions more clear. Arms Warrior. I think Arms Warrior is a great spec in 2s. It does get countered by a lot of stuff. For example, playing versus a Resto Druid. That is just a reality of things. Resto Druid is very annoying to switch on if they're playing correctly. If they're playing Zugzuggy versus Arms and they are like next to him, of course he's going to get cleaved. And Arms Warrior is going to look better than it is. But I'm going to put in A tier. I don't think like it's a meta spec. I think it can perform. I think it's going to be very high on the ladder. I do feel like the S tiers and the stupid strongs are like a bit ahead of them. They could be S tier to be honest, depending on how you rate the tier list, I would say. But I think A tier for being meta, for being like a popular spec, for being strong by themselves, I think it's valid. But you do feel squishy versus a lot of specs. You do feel like you don't have the easy switches and you don't have the CC. You have CC, but it's not like crazy amount of CC compared to other specs. So for me, it's going to be A tier. Let's talk about Assassination Rogue. I think Assassination Rogue feels way better than it is than before, I would say. They do have like natural enemies, I would say. Playing versus Survivor Hunter with like bandage mending is not really as cool. I would also say that in general, it is very squishy. You should win very fast. If you don't, you are kind of doomed. But you're still a rogue spec. As a rogue spec, you can perform very well in twos because of your CC, because of the availability of your damage and the nature of your damage. So I'm going to put it in A tier, but I do feel like it's below arms. I am an arms main, by the way, so I may be biased to a lot of stuff, but I do feel like Assassination Rogue is a bit less stronger than arms. Although they have a kidney shot, although they have blind, they could do many things and win games that are probably auto win versus, like, let's say double DPS. But I would say there are like a few specs out there, like for example DH, unholy DK. They kind of crunch assassination rogues. Although DH, they do lose pretty significantly versus rogues in general. I do feel like currently assassination rogue doesn't have the survivability to actually mesh well versus the DHs. Augmentation evoker, I think it's still strong. I do feel like in twos it's different. I think in twos you will lag the damage if you're playing with a healer, and if you're playing with a DPS you will lag the healing. So for me, I'm going to put augmentation. I don't know, is it good though? I think it's C tier. I'm very sorry. I may be biased again, but I don't see a lot of augmentation in twos anyways. But also, I feel like they don't have the firepower as a DPS to play with a healer, and they don't have the healing power to play with double DPS. They have one shots though, so they can cheese wins. So that's why it's C tier. But I'm not really rating them very high in twos. Excuse me. BM Hunter. BM Hunter is very strong in twos. I think it gets countered by a few specs. But overall, I do feel like BM Hunter is a good S tier. I think it's very, very strong. It has CCE. But it doesn't have a dispel anymore, which, I'm going to be frank, the dispel did a lot for them, and right now it just feels like you're very squishy. You're not very slippery anymore, and the feign death dispel was actually a very big portion of how they become so strong in twos. CC being nerfed as well since 10.1. I think 10.1.5, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 10.1. I don't remember, but they're just not stupid strong anymore. They were stupid strong, but now it's just S tier in my opinion. Demonology Warlock, I think it's a better version of Affliction Warlock. Excuse me. I'm going to rate melees, ranged, and then healers. So it's top of A tier right now for ranged. I would say they are on the same realm as arms for being very strong. They have MS effect, they have CC, they have a bit of tankiness, they have damage that is actually very hard to stop as well. With the current builds, Demonology Warlock has like damage that really it's hard to stop and comes from nowhere. It's also unlineable most of the time. Tyrant can be bugged, but we are not really playing with Tyrant anymore as a Demonology Warlock. They do a lot of damage as well, but they kind of rely on other factors than the Tyrant. Tyrant is not the sole winning factor anymore, which was way before, but right now with all the nerfs and the buffs on specific spells, it does feel like it's way easier to win games right now as a Demonology Warlock. Yeah, I think A tier is fair. I think Destruction Warlock is on the same tier as Affliction Warlock. They're good, but they get countered by smart players. Like Destruction Warlock, if you're playing versus a intelligent S tier, A tier, or just stupid strong, they can just line you constantly whenever you have like the winning factors. I would say the winning condition is actually getting him low with Chaos Bolts and actually try to finish them with instants. It's very tough because people are just not going to sit there and eat 3 Chaos Bolts. So you have to play with, let's say, a Holy Priest to compensate with CC, or to play with a resto druid to compensate with a bit of damage or a bit of CC together. But right now, Destruction Warlock, I feel like they are B tier. They're better than Affliction Warlock in my opinion, but it's really, really close between them. Evoker, this devastation evoker. I'm not really a fan in twos. I think it's tough to say that it's good. It's also tough to say that it is on the same realm of augmentation evoker, but I think I can safely say that they are C tier, maybe a lower. I think they're better than augmentation evoker though, because they can play with a healer. And I think arcane mage is also better than augmentation evoker. They're, I don't know, man. This row, it's very difficult. They could be D tier, but I'm thinking they're underwhelming right now because they have the damage, they have the capacities. They don't have like the consistency of a great DPS. I think that's why. Also, they don't really have a lot of good comps. It's very slippery, but also not. So for me, it's C tier. I don't know if I'm like capable to put a bit higher for them, but I think it's fair. Disc Priest, you see a lot of them in twos right now. I'm not convinced of saying that they are like stupid strong. I do feel like they're like top 3 or not top 4 best healers, and you have to count like the obvious ones. I think they're like less good than a holy priest, so I'm going to put them at A tier, and I'm going to put holy priest as S tier. The reason is holy priest has extra CC, which means the stun or disorient, but it's a stun most likely because of your talents. They are incredible in settling kills because of that. While Disc Priest, they have actually the problem of trying to stick on the targets. Again, if you're playing versus the resto druid, what you want to do is get your melee on the resto druid, and you as a healer, you have to actually follow them because, again, if let's say you're playing a DH versus a DH, the DH will go to the Disc Priest 100% of the time because they want to cleave. So again, if you're like your DPS is on the healer and the other DPS is trying to go on the DPS, it will get a cleave down, and that's a bad idea for most comps. And Disc Priest has the difficulty of actually reaching the other healer, especially Resto Druid. Now, I talk a lot of Resto Druid. I think it's stupid strong. I think it's very hard to actually nerf it, because a lot of factors that makes Resto Druid very good is the combination of all the things, buffs, and also just their kit. The thing is, as a Resto Druid, if you're playing like with a good DPS that is actually able to survive, you can dish some important damage. You can play like Moonkin form and actually spam Rafts and Star Surges and even Starfire if you can with Heart of the Wild. Already seen that someone actually hits, not crit, for 100k on Starfire, which is mind-blowing. So if you actually have the time to cast and to do damage, you can actually just do as much, if not more, damage than Disc Priest. Disc Priest is just more consistent and they don't need to shapeshift. But Resto Druid has that, and I think the healing is also one of the worst healing to deal with in 2v2. You have to switch constantly, but if the Resto Druid is actually very smart, he just hugs the pillar and that's it. That's their pillar, and he tries to run away every time you're trying to do a switch. So, stupid strong. Now, I want to talk about the healers first right now because I'm on the roll. Fist Weaving is very strong as well. It is S tier as well. I think that is the top 4 in my eyes. Holy Priest and Mistweavers, they are like kind of equal. But whenever I'm talking about Mistweaver, I'm thinking about Fist Weaving. I do feel like the other version of Mistweaver, which is the casted one, is not as strong in twos because it does get destroyed by a lot of specs. And a good switch often it is actually just lethal for them. But a Fist Weaver has the damage, has the great healing, has the annoyance of not getting stopped because you have to CC him and run away from the Mistweaver, which is not always the easiest part whenever you are playing also versus the DPS, right? So that's why it's S tier. I think it's very strong. I think it will stay strong. Holy Paladin, I think it's good, not more, no less. I think it's alright. They can do CC, they can do some damage. They just don't have the mana, and mana in twos is really king. If you cannot really sustain more than 2 minutes or 3 minutes fights, I think it's over. You will lose the mana game versus many of the higher ups on the tier list. Preservation Evoker is one of the specs that are actually not that good. I want to put them on C tier, but I'm going to put it in B tier because they have the damage, they have the capacities, they have the ways to win games by themselves with the damage, but they don't have like the capacities of, I would say, sustaining long fights. They don't have like lots of CDs. They are on a time bomb, and I think that is the main reason why. In general, we're going to talk about Resto Shaman as one of the least interesting healers this patch, but I do have faith. I think it's also a A tier spec. They have the damage, they have the capacities of healing, they have the mana as well. They have actually great PvP talents that are actually very, very good to stop specific comps. I might be biased because I do like Restoration Shaman, but I think they are stupid strong if they are paired with a DH, for example, or with an Arms Warrior, or something that can actually zug, and you can actually have time to do a Lava Burst or a Stormkeeper, and you can actually win games because of that. That's the important part. Restoration Shaman is very good. Elemental Shaman is interesting in how they are dealing damage. I think it's a very dampening spec though in twos. It's not the most interesting spec to play, but I think it can perform. But I'm still on the fence of putting him higher than B tier. In threes, it is fantastic. I think it's really contender of being like S tier. I think in twos, they don't have like the capacities to finish off games very quickly. And I do feel like you auto lose versus a lot of specs currently. I'm saying DH, I'm saying rogues. I think BM Hansa it's a bit different, but again, you lose versus a lot of the better specs in twos, and that is actually a detriment if you're playing like a caster. Enhanced Shaman, I think it's at best B tier, but I would say it's maybe C tier. I'm going to put them in C tier. I think it's a bit of a meme in twos. You have to play a double DPS. You can play with a Holy Priest, and if you're playing well, you can actually win. But I think it's a meme in the sense where you cannot really finish games reliably. That's my opinion. And also they don't have MS effect. They're on a time bomb as well. Their CDs are quite long. So yeah, I mean, they cannot compare to the other specs on this list. Feral Druid, it is stupid strong in twos. They have crazy bites. I actually got critted by a Feral Druid for 280k, and it is not even a rare occasion. It just happens. It's something that is not like having needing at least all the stars to be aligned to have that kind of damage, and I feel like that actually gives you the right to be stupid strong on this tier list. They have cleave if you're playing a BM hunter. Too bad, your pet is dying with him. And they have CC. Cyclone is one of the better CCs. They have the damage. The force set is also insane, so it will only get better as well. So for me, it's going to be stupid strong. Fire Mage. I think Fire Mage is way too squishy in twos if they're playing Glass Cannon, and it is the only way to play if you want to do damage. So I'm going to put them C tier as well. They are nowhere near the strength that they had in Shadowlands because I feel like they don't have the sustain. I do feel like Arcane Mage is way more sustaining. They could do something. Fire Mage, on the other hand, is Feast of Famine. You win in the opener, or you are kind of screwed, or you have to rely to a good rogue that actually can peel for you, which is the annoying part. Frost Mage, let's talk about Mage first. I think it's a bit better in twos. I'm going to put them at B tier because they have the damage, they have double block, they can actually do some neat things, and they have one-shots pretty much. I would still recommend to play twos with a double DPS, but still it's really on the verge of being C tier. It's really, really, really close of being C tier, but I do see Frost better than Arcane and Fire Mage together, so That's why it get at least a extra tier for that. Let's talk about the rogue specs real quickly. Sub rogue is stupid strong in 2s. They can one shot. Double rogue is actually insane. You have one rogue that comes out before, tries to do some damage, have some DRs, and then the second rogue comes out, does his rotation with a casting sequence, and it's over at that point if you don't have the reflexes of doing a trinket and using a CD. So just for that, I think it's stupid strong. I think it does some good damage. I think it has good comms. They can play with a double DPS, or they can do with a healer, and it will be more reliable. And in general, you're going to feel good playing a sub rogue. Outlaw rogue is going to be actually. Should I put stupid strong? I'm going to put stupid strong in 2s. I think in 2s it is stupid strong. I think in 3s is a bit different though. But in 2s they have the sustain, they have the consistent damage, they have defensives, they have the annoyance, they have the CC, they have actually everything that 2s actually requires. They have mobility as well. So that's why I'm going to put them above everyone else. But I do feel like they're very close to the S tier compared to the other specs in the stupid strong section. I want to talk about DH, the elephant in the room. It is the strongest melee in the game. It is obnoxious. The damage is unrelenting. People cannot stop you. You have too many defensives as well. So going for the DH is looking like a bait in general. If the DH knows how to play, he will hold his glimpse for the CC. He will blur whenever your healer is CD, their healer is CD, CC'd. He will darkness if he feels like he is in danger and the healer is CC'd, or the healer is in danger. He will darkness for him. You have netherwalk if anything doesn't work. He has everything, and the damage is stupid. Just because of the damage, he could be just there, but it is the combination of everything. He also has crazy CC. Like, it doesn't stop to the parts that I'm talking about whenever I'm talking about TH, but it is a combination of everything that actually just makes them the stupid strong spec right now in 2s. I want to talk really quickly about hunters now. Survivor hunter actually is going lower. The reason is it's actually very hard to CC reliably a resto druid that is actually good. You have to expand your stun. I think as a survivor hunter, you have the leisure of feeling super strong because of your healer. But I have to give a note or a tier based on their spec, not on their comp only. Because again, the comp is maybe god tier, maybe the best comp ever, but it doesn't make the spec survivor hunter the best spec ever though. And that's why I'm going to put them on S tier. I think it's probably a bit stronger than BM. It is really on the verge of being stupid strong, but DH just eats them. A feral druid actually has a better time right now because it's easier to apply bleeds these days. So it's just mending your bandage mending is not enough to actually stop all these things. They like a bit of damage. I think they like just being built for variety. That is the truth. And for me right now, Survivor Hunter is just not as close as how they are in Shadowlands. The spell removal on Feign Death actually just plays way more for Survivor Hunter than BM Hunter right now. So S tier, it's a max. MM Hunter, actually it's not bad in 2s. You can cheese, you can do some good damage. You actually can kite pretty well as well. I'm going to put it in A tier. I think it's on the same level as Demonology Warlock. It has damage, don't get me wrong. It's a lot harder to actually CC the target. But I think the damage can just compensate for all the bad things going on for MM in 2s. But that is the one that I'm not really sure about whenever I'm talking about MM in 2s, because I don't see that many MMs, and the ones I see I usually destroy. But then I see like a good MM with me, and at that point I do see the potential it can have. So that's why I'm going to put them at A tier right now. Let's talk about Frost Decay. I think it's the worst 2v2 spec in the game. The 4 set could push them in C tier, but I'm going to put them at D tier because it's one of the easier specs to stop, and most, or if not all, the better specs all have a disarm or a stop of some sort to actually mitigate the Pillar of Frost. And versus, like, let's say outlaw rogue or sub rogue, if they have disarm and they should play disarm versus a frost decay, no way you're going to have great value on Pillar of Frost. It just is what it is. Fury Warrior, though, in 2s, I'm going to put them at B tier. They are really a worse version than Arms. I'm not putting them lower because I do feel like Fury Warrior with a resto druid or with a monk, a fist-weaving monk, or with a holy priest actually is quite strong. So that's why I'm going to put them at B tier. But it's mostly because of the comp. Actually, I mean, they're not bad as well. I think it's just... it's average. It's really close to C tier, but I do feel like Enhance is a bit less interesting than Fury in 2s. Balance Druid, I think in 2s it's a bit cheesy. It can work, but I'm going to put them at B tier, maybe on the same level as Affliction Warlock. It's dampening as hell, man. There is no way that you are like losing versus a boomy druid if you are experimented in 2s. It's really telegraphed as well. So for me, B tier, it could be A tier by a small margin, but I mean, that's not really my cup of tea. Retribution Paladin, I think in 2s it's not as strong. It is strong, but it's not as strong. I think it's really top of B tier, really close to A tier, but I do see that they don't have the MS effect, they don't have self heals as important as it should be. They don't have the off heals as well, so I don't know. It could be a bit higher though. Paladin, I'm not sure. It could be A tier. It could be really close to A tier, and I could be wrong by putting them in B tier. So for now, keeping them there. Unholy DK is also S tier. They could be easily stupid strong, but they got stopped by their defensives. If the defensives actually were very strong, then it could be stupid strong, but right now Unholy DK is on a whole lot of a level extra than Frost DK. Shadow Priest, on the other hand, I think they are a bit doomed, or they need to play like 2v2 with a double DPS to actually have great games. But I'm going to put them top of B tier, maybe close to A tier. They have damage, they have great CC, and they're actually carried by their CC. I think CC wise, they're one of the best specs out there. So that's why I'm putting them at B tier. They also have great self heals and great CDs to use to actually feign the death pretty often. Windwalker. I think Windwalker is quite good. I think it's on the same level as Arms in 2s. They get like countered by a lot of specs, but I think their one-shots and their potential is actually also very high, and that's why I'm putting them at A tier. Tanks, I'm not going to judge them because in 2s it's way different, but this is my tier list. Again, if you want to talk about it, please comment below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet. And we will catch each other probably very soon in the next video. Have a good day. Bye.